Greetings, folks. Anila Horum here with a World of Warships replay, and we are sailing with Schepker in the premium Tier 5 Japanese destroyer, the Kamikaze. This is a domination match on Strait, and the team rosters include 5 battleships on each side, and battleships are definitely prime fodder for a torpedo boat like the Kamikaze. However, there is also a carrier and 4 destroyers on the opposing team, 3 of those destroyers being competent gunboats, so that's definitely going to make things more challenging for Schepker in the Kamikaze. As far as commander skills and ship upgrades, Schepker is working with a 13-point commander, and that might be a little bit unusual. A lot of players with these premium ships tend to stack their ships with their top-tier 19-point commanders. The most notable omission as far as skills that Schepker does not have would be radio location, which is very common for Japanese torpedo boats, but otherwise the build here is pretty typical. Highlights for this battle is that this is going to be kind of a bittersweet match, and we'll see later on why that is. And I'm going to apologize in advance for any hoarseness in my throat. I'm not sure whether I'm coming down with a cold or it's just the morning congestion, but I do apologize for any roughness or hoarseness in my throat this morning. So, Schepker, having spawned on the south end of the map, has moved to Charlie to help contest this cap. He's got a Jean Wei here, allied Jean Wei with him here, and he's going to be going up against an opposing Mutsuki and an opposing Jean Wei as well. You notice there that we had a freeze in the game. This match was played during a period in early October when Wargaming was having some server issues, and people were seeing sort of lagging or freezing in their games, and people were getting kicked out of the server. And so we're going to see that happen a couple of times during this match. And that might also be a factor in how this game gets played out later on. And again, I'll explain later on why that is. So Schepker's going to spend a considerable amount of the first portion of this match in this cap, working to take it and contest it. The opposing team gets first blood by taking out the allied Jean Wei that was with Schepker here at Charlie. So Schepker's team is already down 1 ship. The allies are taking Bravo. You can see a Farragut that is in Bravo, but there is an opposing Pensacola that is closing in on the Bravo cap. The allied team has now taken out their first ship, which is an opposing Nuremberg by the allied carrier. So that's definitely good. Schepker at some point is going to abandon this cap because I think he feels like he doesn't have enough close support to take the cap and to be able to contest against 2 opposing destroyers, at least one of which is a competent gunship. So there we can see the opposing Jean Wei that is in the cap. So Schepker is at this point going to just concentrate and there's actually the opposing Mutsuki, and the Mutsuki is trying to get out of that last set of torpedoes, but he is going to get bumped on the end and is taken out in a devastating strike for Schepker's first kill. So now the opposing team is down to 1 destroyer here at Charlie, which is still in the cap. Schepker is going to send more torpedoes here towards the smoke where the opposing Jean Wei was last detected. And he's going to head back to the cap. Now, the opposing team has taken Alpha, although it looks like the allied Geta is trying to do his best to contest, but he is facing 2 opposing destroyers at Alpha. The Bravo cap was taken. The allied Farragut is now heading south through the East Channel. I don't know whether he felt like that was his only escape route, given that he's being chased by the allied Pensacola, or whether he's been afflicted by the CV hunting disease. I'm not sure which, but in any case, he's currently trying to get out of harm's way, or it looks like he's now trying to get a torpedo run on the Pensacola since he may not be able to get away. Schepker has re-entered the Charlie cap, and he's detected by opposing aircraft and is taking a couple of hits here from the opposing Jean Wei. And here comes a drop from the opposing carrier, but Schepker is going to be able to slow in time and avoid these torpedoes. the opposing John Wei has now abandoned the cap. We can see that the Allied Farragut was successful in finishing off the opposing Pensacola. So that's good. And Schepker is now able to take the Charlie cap now without being contested. Schepker is pinging on the map here. He's asking the carrier to light up the John Wei so that the Allies can help take him out. Yeah, the John Wei is now coming back in to the cap. In fact, I think he gets back in the cap before Schepker finishes capping it. Oh no, I stand corrected. So this is Schepker's first solo cap for the match, and it's not going to be the only one he's going to have. Now the opposing John Wei has moved back into the cap. There's been a couple more losses on each team. Each team is down 4 ships. Schepker's team has a slight point advantage in that their point advance ticks up slightly ahead of the opposing team. Now the opposing team has moved into Bravo and Charlie, and so now Schepker's team is not getting points from any caps at this point, so they are starting to fall behind. Again, Schepker has had to abandon the cap here because the Allied players are not close enough to the cap to be able to give him close support to take out the opposing John Wei. So Schepker is trying to at least discourage the opposing battleships that are on the very south end of the map from advancing further forward. Now we can see the opposing carrier, the Bogue, at Juliet 7. Schepker is going to go back into the cap here because he realizes that they desperately need caps. They need to at least contest something. They've now just lost Bravo. The Allied Farragut, which had successfully taken the Bravo cap and sunk the Pensacola, has now been sunk as well. Although Schepker's team does have a 1-ship advantage at this point, but they are going to fall behind very rapidly here without capturing something. And so Schepker's now making a fairly bold move here to try to get this opposing John Wei out of the way. Again, I think Schepker was quite frustrated, or I suspect he was, because he wasn't getting close enough Allied support to be able to take out the opposing John Wei. The opposing John Wei does take a torpedo. It's not quite enough to kill him, so Schepker's going to get a couple of salvos off here. In fact, he gets just 1 shell on the opposing John Wei and is able to finish off the opposing destroyer. But the ship counts are, again, Schepker's team has a 1-ship advantage, but they are behind because until Schepker sunk the John Wei, they were not getting points from any caps. Now, I should point out here, a lot of people like to sail the Kamikaze because it is a very powerful boat. And again, I tend not to want to sort of showcase seal clubbing matches, but this is a little bit like the match that I featured in the Königsberg a couple of months ago, where there was kind of this blurred line between when you're seal clubbing and when you're trying to carry the match. And given the challenges that Schepker's team is definitely experiencing, this can't really be racked up at this point. It's just straight up seal clubbing. Schepker's having to pull out all the bags of a bag of tricks in order to try to hold on to this match and try to preserve things. We can see that at Alpha, an Allied battleship has now moved into that cap. That looks like there was a fairly protracted engagement there as well, which is pretty typical for Strait. Schepker is now going to try to make his way up towards Bravo. There is still an opposing destroyer. Actually, we can see where he is at Bravo 4, it looks like. So Schepker's not going to have too much of an issue having to run into that destroyer. But Schepker really desperately wants to get another cap because the Allied battleship that was in Alpha has now been finished off as well, and Schepker's team is now down a ship as well as down one cap. So they're continue to fall behind here. See, the opposing Iron Duke is moving up the east side of the channel here. It's kind of taking himself out of the battle. I don't know whether he was very wounded and he felt like he needed to get into some concealment. Now, because Schepker did get a couple of torpedoes on him, maybe he feels like he needs to get into some sort of concealment or kite away in order to mitigate damage. Schepker is now sending torpedoes on the Arizona. The Arizona obviously did spot him, and Schepker is now having to drop smoke to avoid taking a large salvo from the American battleship. The Allied battleship that is on Schepker's port side is very broadside to the Arizona, and the Arizona is a very competent, or its gun systems are very competent, so that's probably not a good choice. It is an Allied Bayern, which has, obviously very good armor schemes, but even at, being broadside to 14-inch guns is going to do a lot of damage. Schepker is coming around here for another torpedo run. This is a reflection of the strength of this torpedo boat. The torpedoes stock reload in 47 seconds. With the torpedo armament expertise skill, you can get that down to 42.3 seconds. And then if you have adrenaline rush, which in this case Schepker does not, you can bring it down substantially more than that and get close to 35 seconds if you're really low on health with adrenaline rush. Here is the Allied, or the opposing Gaeta has now entered the cap. Schepker realizes it's now just him and his carrier at this point against 4 opponents. And so there's nothing left to lose at this point. Schepker's just got to move in and do what he can to try to take this cap and to take out the opposing ships that are here. So this is obviously not normally the tactic that one would follow in a torpedo boat where you want to stay in concealment all the time, but he feels that at this point he has no choice. He does manage to get a couple more torpedoes on the opposing Arizona, is able to take him down for the 3rd kill of the match, and he's now dealing with a Gaeta, which normally is a much more potent gunship. I'm not sure why the Gaeta is smoking up here. If I were in a Gaeta going up against a Kamikaze, I would be hunting him down with hydro and using my superior gun systems to finish off Schepker and the Kamikaze. But he chooses to smoke up. He takes 1 torpedo from Schepker, and the Gaeta has a lot of health. The German destroyers in general have a lot of health, so they are often able to survive a torpedo strike. It's not that torpedo strike wasn't quite enough to kill him, but he was very low in health, and Schepker is now able to finish him off for Schepker's 4th kill. Schepker is now going to get the Bravo cap. They've now evened the ship count to 2 ships apiece. Now, the Schepker, once he gets this cap, is going to ask the carrier to go after the Iron Duke, which you can see at Foxtrot 8, or at least he was visible at that point. Schepker is going to send some torpedoes here. But at some point, this is where things are going to get a little bit challenging, because Schepker, they are still quite behind, more than 200 points. And there's about 5 minutes left. So if they can get the caps and at least sink 1 more ship, they should be okay. But as I mentioned, this is going to be kind of a bittersweet match, and we'll see a little bit later here why that is. There is the request from Schepker to go after the opposing Iron Duke. And we can see the strike planes for the Allied Zuiho are headed back to the carrier, but that is going to be the last that we see of planes from the Allied carrier. Now, Schepker doesn't know it at this point, but the Allied carrier is basically going to go AFK, and we don't know why. I'm not going to make any sort of disparaging comments. That would not be fair to that player. We don't know if the Allied carrier, he had a personal emergency, or he ran into this server issue that the Wargaming was having at the time, or he was disconnected because of ISP problems. We just don't know. I can't see that there would be any rational reason why the Allied carrier went AFK here, but he does. But Schepker doesn't know that at this point. He does get 2 more torpedoes on the Iron Duke with flooding, but the Iron Duke has damage con. He can get just 1 more torpedo hit with flooding. That will finish off the Iron Duke. We can now see that the opposing Fuso has moved into the Charlie Cap. Now, Schepker, I think at this point, was assuming the Allied carrier was still active and would have been able to go after one of these battleships, hopefully the Fuso, and at least get resets on that cap, if not take him out entirely, and Schepker could worry about finishing off the Iron Duke. And Schepker, I think, at the time, made the correct decision to head to Alpha to take that cap, with the expectation that the Allied carrier would be able to support him with strikes on the Fuso. But as you can see, there are no active planes in the sky right now, and so Schepker really is all alone. You will see some comments in chat here shortly asking about, hey, carrier, what's up? Have you gone AFK? So they will, figure out here very shortly that the Allied carrier is AFK. Schepker does get another torpedo. He does earn high caliber, along with the devastating strike that he has. And you can see that the Iron Duke is flooding out, since his damage control party would be down at this point. And there is Kraken Unleashed for the 5th kill. Now, Schepker is now taking the Alpha Cap. He is, in fact, you can see Schepker has typed some comments in the chat about the carrier being away. Again, we don't know what has happened. I can't see that the carrier made a deliberate or malicious, attempt to abandon the game and the team. I have to believe that there, something went wrong that was outside the player's control. So Schepker has now secured the Alpha Cap for his 3rd solo cap of the game, and he's now facing off against 1 opposing battleship. Now, normally the opposing battleship would have no chance, but there's only 1.5 minutes left in the game. The opposing team is up by more than 80 points. And even though Schepker's team hold a 1 cap advantage, there isn't enough time for them to catch up. At a 1 minute interval, they will only gain 30 points on the opposing team, which isn't enough. So Schepker has to go and sink the Fuso. Now, the Fuso player, if he had figured out the math, his best option would have been to just sail away, because his team have the win. But it may not have been obvious to this Fuso player that was the better option for him to play. So he's going to come, and he's approaching the Bravo Cap. Schepker has enough time to get certainly 1 and possibly 2 torpedo runs on the Fuso, but he has to sink the Fuso in order to win at this point. It's a really poor angle for a torpedo send, because he's having to send these bow on to the battleship, and that makes it a lot easier for the battleship to thread these torpedoes. Schepker's tried to spread them around a little bit so that it isn't completely easy for the battleship to thread them. The battleship does take 2 torpedoes, but time runs out and they end up losing the match. And Schepker ends up getting top XP, not only for his team, but for the entire game, even over the opposing team. So this is, again, one of these kind of very bittersweet matches. It is disappointing that the Allied carrier went AFK. Again, we don't know why, but the Allied carrier clearly was doing a decent job during the match, since given his position and the XP rankings. But a disappointing match nonetheless. So I hope you enjoyed the match and the commentary. Please do leave your comments below. And as always, we hope to see you out there, and we wish you happy sailing.